You lost an hour of sleep, but you gain an hour of sunlight. It's finally time to spring forward. Hope you had a great weekend. Let's do a show. Stand up. Hi there, and welcome to Stand Up, where each and every day I try to find the most important issues that impact you and explain them, learn them along with you. I'm not the expert, but I do have them on each and every day. Joining me today, I've got the brilliant Heidi Stevens of Chicago, one of my favorite columnists, one of my favorite people. Always love talking to Heidi. That is coming up at about 34 minutes into today's show. But I've got to get to your headlines. My voice is a little taxed. I think I've got a cold. That's right. No COVID or the flu, just like a cold. Not feeling great, but I do have a show that I put together for you. I did have a good weekend, and I'm very happy to have you here. Hope to see you at tonight's Hangout at 8 p.m., and I hope to see you at our PODJAM 2, March 28th. Get your tickets now. They are available. We'll hope to see you there. I got whole bunch of clips coming up from the Sunday shows, but let's jump right into those headlines. Starting in Canada, where last night they elected a new prime minister and head of the country's Liberal Party. His name is Mark Carney, and I've got an explainer as to who he is coming up, but that is pretty big news in Canada. He's certainly got a lot to deal with, so we'll get into that and learn more about him in a little bit. He won a stunning 85% of the votes cast by the Liberal Party members. More than 150,000 people voted, according to the party's leaders. And the other big story is it is daylight saving time. So if you're like a lot of Americans, you get kind of acclimated to a way of being, and all of a sudden sky's a different color. You gotta function in the normal way. It's not always easy to keep functioning normally. In fact, apparently most sleep researchers and clinicians say that the spring forward time change is bad for our health. Maybe that's what's going on. In the days following the time change, the country sees a higher incidence of car accidents, strokes, and heart attacks. So be careful out there, because there's also more fatal overdoses and suicides, apparently. People suffer more migraines and are at greater risk of getting injured at work. So be careful in the time change. It's a real challenging transition for many of us. So don't blame yourself if something weird is happening. Violence has broke out in Syria again. More than 1,300 people have been killed, many believed to be civilians, in the span of 3 days amid intense fighting between forces associated with Syria's new government and those loyal to the deposed dictator Bashar al-Assad, according to a human rights group. Conflict is considered the country's worst violence since insurgents toppled the Assad regime back in December. It's also the biggest test for Syria's new government since it assumed power. So who the hell wants to fight for a guy who already abandoned the country and who was such a horrible guy? Pretty crazy. But sorry to hear that headline. And this one, a plane crashed in a small town in Pennsylvania. This comes as the transportation secretary is allegedly feuding with Elon Musk last week, so that's fantastic. Another small plane crash. Apparently, there were 5 people on board, and as of now, the news is saying they're all alive. They were just they're all injured, apparently, pretty bad. But 6-seat Beechcraft crashed in Lancaster, Pennsylvania yesterday. Oh, and more bad news, because that's what I do here. I do the news, and most of it's bad because it's an aberration, so let's not get too concerned. Most things are good. Most people don't have measles, but another person does. That's right. State Health Department announced new measles case in Maryland, so it's reached the East Coast. That's real bad. Anyone who visited may have been exposed. Washington Dulles International Airport, apparently, the international arrivals area, March 5th, 4 to 9 p.m. If you were there, hopefully you've had your vaccine. I mean, you probably did, but still terrible news. And more bad news as a result of funding cuts. The country's preeminent federal fire training academy canceled classes effective immediately over the weekend amid an ongoing flurry of funding freezes and staffing cuts by Trump's awful unorganized Doge organization, or whatever the hell they're doing. FEMA announced that the National Fire Academy courses were canceled amid a process of evaluating agency programs and spending to ensure alignment with administration priorities. So it's just ridiculous. Firefighters, EMS providers, and other first responders from across the country travel to this Maryland campus for the federally funded institution's free training program. So it's a pretty dumb self-inflicted wound, if you ask me. Nobody's asking me, though, but I just want to make sure I mention that in the headlines. Yesterday, the Secret Service shot a 27-year-old guy outside the White House after an armed confrontation with federal officers. Of course, Trump wasn't there because he's never there. He was in Florida at his Mar-a-Lago club and not at the White House at the time. Let's head to Long Island, where there's a terrible brush fire. 22% now contained as firefighters battle high winds, but still no good. And now they're not training firefighters. So this is a really bad thing. The CEOs of Target and Best Buy last week warned that they'll have to increase prices as a result of tariffs. We'll get to that in a little bit in the clips. And got to mention two stories sent in to me by my friend Ty, our friend Ty in Maryland, by the way. Ty Randolph said the Justice Department is ending the Louisiana petrochemical. The Justice Department on Friday celebrated its decision to drop a federal lawsuit against a Louisiana petrochemical plant accused of worsening cancer risks for residents in a majority black community, saying the dismissal showed that officials are delivering on Trump's promise to dismantle anything that is helping black folks and increase anything that is helping white folks, because that's how much of an awful asshole he is and race warrior that he is. The dismissal Wednesday, the 2-year-old case underscored their commitment to dismantle anything that has anything to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and restore white supremacy in the federal government. Just awful. But I'm glad that Ty sent me that story as well as this one from Arizona, where a cisgender woman is speaking out after she says she was harassed by cops in the women's restroom of a Tucson, Arizona Walmart last month. 19-year-old woman says she and her ex-girlfriend were using adjacent stalls in the store's women's restroom when two male sheriff's deputies entered the women's room. They were flashing lights at our feet, she said. You have to get out of here. You have to come out. We need to talk to you. The young woman identifies as a stud, which is queer slang for a masculine presenting lesbian. Said she believed a store employee who had been eyeing her earlier reported her to cops believing she was a man. The Advocate is reporting that Arizona law does not dictate that people use public restrooms that correspond with sex they were assigned at birth. So there's a whole bunch of videos and an interview with her. Said she exited the bathroom stall, lifted her shirt to prove the deputies that she was a woman. She said one of the deputies continued to insist she looked like a man. I mean, this is just so awful and sad and terrible. But I'm glad that Ty sent me both those stories, because that's what I want to do here in the headline section, is give you the most important, impactful news we can find. And that's going to have to be it. There's a lot more. But like I said, I'm a little under the weather and don't want to talk too much. But thank you to Ty for sending those stories. I didn't see them anywhere else. Send your any stories, any ideas you've got, standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right, let's head to Canada and get the news there. First, let's hear from the outgoing Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau.
Now, these past 10 years, have been challenging. Crisis after crisis has been thrown at Canadians. But through every crisis, Canadians have shown who they are.
All right, there you go. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in his departure speech. And here's Chrystia Freeland, who didn't win that election. I was hoping she would because she's an old friend from my CNN days, but she was on CNN with Anderson Cooper on Friday night.
What we do know is, the Prime Minister is right. The Wall Street Journal is right. These are the dumbest tariffs in history. This is utterly self-mutilating. It's really a perverse approach, Anderson, because America is hurting itself. Moving in this direction, the president is killing the U.S. stock market. Your stock market is actually performing worse than the stock market in Europe or in Canada. You're going to raise the prices on gas. You're going to raise the prices on groceries. You're going to make electricity more expensive. And all for what reason? Because Canadians aren't nice enough? I mean, come on. This is just utterly absurd. America is hurting itself. And the end result has been to do something which is really hard to do. Antagonize Canadians.
All right, now let's learn about the new Prime Minister in Canada. His name is Mark Carney. And this is what he sounded like last night in Canada.
There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't. I am proud of the response of Canadians who are making their voices heard and their wallets felt. I am grateful for how our provinces are stepping up to the fight, because when we are united, we are Canada strong. The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. My government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect. And until they can join us in making credible and reliable commitments to free and fair trade. As Krista did. Yeah. And in the meantime, we will ensure that all the proceeds from our tariffs will be used to protect our workers.
All right, here is a brief explainer from the Canadian Broadcast Company, the CBC, that tells us a little bit more about this guy.
This is no time for politics as usual.
Mark Carney pitched himself as an outsider, not a politician, but someone who would have the skills needed to meet the moment.
No, it's not the time for lifelong politicians such as Pierre Poilievre.
He was born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, raised in Edmonton. His father, Bob, ran for the Liberals, coming in second to the Progressive Conservatives. Carney studied economics abroad, earning a bachelor's degree from Harvard University before getting his master's and PhD from Oxford. For 13 years, he worked for global investment banking firm Goldman Sachs, before holding several senior positions at the Bank of Canada and in the finance department in Ottawa.
CPP, QPP is not federal money. It is shared money for all Canadians.
In 2008, then Prime Minister Stephen Harper appointed Carney to run the Bank of Canada, the second youngest bank governor ever.
Some of the world's largest financial institutions have recorded substantial losses.
Amid the global financial crisis, Carney called for widespread reforms to the world's financial system.
Double hats now as the head of the International Financial Stability Board, so delighted you're able to join us, Mark.
Working alongside Harper Conservatives, Carney was credited for how well Canada weathered the financial storm compared to other nations. Even named as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in 2010, the only central banker on the list, alongside people like U.S. President Barack Obama.
Canada has shone, relatively speaking, in the world during the period of time in which Governor Carney has served as the governor of the Bank of Canada.
In 2013, Carney became the governor of the Bank of England, becoming the first ever foreigner to be named to that role. He later agreed to stay on at the helm for 2 extra years to help ease the Brexit transition. More recently, Carney worked for investment firm Brookfield Asset Management, served as the United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Action.
2/3 of carbon being priced by the end of the decade.
For years, he supported a carbon tax, only to walk away from the policy at the start of the leadership race.
Why don't I become a circus clown? I mean, it's like...
For more than a decade, Carney toyed with the idea of running for the top job of the Liberal Party.
I have gainful employment, and I intend to continue it.
In 2020, Prime Minister Trudeau tapped Carney to serve as an informal advisor on the government's pandemic recovery plan. He immediately became a front-runner in the leadership race when Trudeau resigned earlier this year. He has never held public office, but Liberals bought his pitch. Now he will have to convince Canadians.
All right. Thank you to the CBC for that excellent report. And now let's head back home to U.S. to find out what's happening with the Democratic Party. First, you got Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader in the House. He leads the Democrats in the House, and he made this message for the DNC over the weekend. And he said that they got Donald Trump. We've got Donald Trump on the run, which is weird because just after that, we hear from Senator Elissa Slotkin in Michigan on one of the Sunday shows saying we kind of on our heels. So mixed messages coming from the Democrats. That's no surprise. Here is first Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, thank you so much. We have the Republicans on the run on three core issues. They are on the run in terms of the economy. In fact, Donald Trump and Republicans are crashing the economy in real time. Donald Trump gave one of the most divisive speeches by a president in American history, 100 minutes, and he barely spent any time on the economy. Why? Because it's collapsing on his watch. They made promises with respect to lowering costs. Costs aren't going down. They're going up. Inflation is going up. You know what's coming down? Donald Trump's poll numbers, because he is mismanaging the economy and the American people are feeling it. And we're just at the 45-day mark. We have them on the run in terms of health care, particularly as it relates to Medicaid. House Democrats stand on the side of Medicaid and the American people. Republicans are trying to enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. And we need to keep the pressure on them legislatively and in communities all across the country. And partnering with you, we will be able to continue to do that. And we have them on the run with respect to the GOP tax scam, where they want to cut Medicaid, cut nutritional assistance for children and families, cut veterans benefits, and potentially cut Social Security benefits by trying to decimate the Social Security Administration. We have to continue to call them out on their extremism. We will do that. And all of that is being done in service of trying to pass massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors like Elon Musk and wealthy corporations. So we have them on the run, and we're going to keep our foot on the gas pedal.
All right. Do we have them on the run? Is that right? Well, here is Elissa Slotkin on Meet the Press.
Since you delivered the Democratic response this week, a lot of eyes on you, Senator. Who would you say is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
Look, I mean, people know me. I'm pretty straightforward. I don't think it's a secret that Democrats have been on their heels since Trump won the election, right? I don't think that's something hidden. And I think it's on us to be clear about not only leadership, and there's lots of leaders in both parties, but also a strategy, right? And I think that's something that as Trump has been successful in flooding the zone and just like every day, 15 things happening, we are still finding our footing. And I think you can't get better until you admit you have a problem. And for me, that's one of the things that I think some of the new voices in the party have really been agitating about, right? New senators, new representatives, new folks who are like, hey, we need to do more, and we need to be showing that we're actually having a plan to stand up on really important moments of inflection. So that's what I'm trying to do from within.
All right. Well, how's it going? I don't know. I can't tell you. What do you think? Here is Jasmine Crockett. She's one of our favorites, so she always does good. She's on MSNBC with Katie Fang.
We're less than a week away from that government shutdown deadline. What are the Democrats going to do?
Listen, the Democrats are united as it relates to the American people. I want to be clear that this really is not partisan. I know that it looks very partisan, but at the end of the day, we know that the cuts that the Republicans are proposing, that these cuts are not only going to impact Democrats and independents, but Republicans as well. In fact, we know that the Republicans have decided that they don't want to answer to their constituents. They put out official guidance saying, do not go home and do town halls. And so right now, the Democrats are carrying the load for not only our constituency, but for theirs too, because clearly they don't have the answers for their constituents, which the honest to goodness truth is that they don't answer to their constituents. They only have decided that they're going to answer to Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
All right, there you go. And here's another good Democrat. I think I like this guy. His name is Jake Auchincloss, and he is a veteran. He's a Marine, and he was on CNN over the weekend as well.
As well, we were doing a town hall in the biggest city in my district. Democrats still do town halls. And this city voted for Donald Trump in 2024, first time in 100 years. The most resonant theme of the day that I heard from these Americans was how livid they are about the way that President Trump behaved in the Oval Office with Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky flew to Washington, but he walked into the Kremlin. And the propaganda that they heard from the commander-in-chief made Americans feel less safe and made them feel ashamed. This is an opportunity for congressional Republicans to distance themselves from this abomination and to demonstrate that Americans are going to stand for freedom and democracy. Because with all due respect, people do win wars. The United States won World War II. It made this world safe for freedom and democracy. We are now making it less safe for freedom and democracy by giving Russia all the cards that Donald Trump claims they have.
All right, there you go. I thought that was good. Now let's go to the idiots, starting with the senator from Florida, Rick Scott, who's evil, straight up. He was on with Jake Tapper over the weekend. Here's that.
There are a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill behind the scenes, uneasy with how Elon Musk has been cutting the workforce. Not the goal of cutting out waste, fraud, and abuse, but how he's been doing it. You organized a meeting between Musk and Senate Republicans to help smooth ruffled feathers, improve communications. I do keep seeing elected officials publicly posting about programs or agencies in their home districts or states being targeted by DOJ, and they plead with Musk to save them. Here's Congressman Tom Cole showing how he, by going to Musk, saved jobs in his district, in the National Weather Service and other federal offices in Oklahoma. Are you comfortable with Republican elected officials basically going to beg the richest man in the world, an unelected, un-Senate confirmed person, to have to save American jobs? Is that okay with you?
Well, I talked to Elon Musk quite a bit about what he's doing, and he's doing what I did when I became governor of Florida. You look at every program. So here's what he said. He is looking at every program he can. He's given information to agency heads, and they're making a decision how to go forward. But let me tell you, Americans are fed up. $600,000 for menstrual study cycle, or study menstrual cycles of transgender men, $300 million for a cement manufacturer in Gaza. I mean, $800,000 for gardening in El Salvador. Let me tell you, I just went through the campaign trail. People are fed up with wasteful government spending.
People have no idea what they're talking about. We don't. The problem is the messaging. It is so easy to cherry pick and point out this or that line item, which adds up to pennies, and then make a mockery of it because people don't understand any of the investments that he just mentioned and why they matter. And if you just take the top line from a study or any other project, it's easy to make it seem like it's wasteful. But if you look at the very vast majority of the government spending, it's easy to make it look important. But that's not how they do things, and it's very effective. Anecdotes and cherry-picked arguments will always convince people that there's all kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse. But then they're firing the inspectors general, whose job it is to find waste, fraud, and abuse. So it's a tough messaging battle because whenever you have a guy like Rick Scott and so many other right-wing radio hosts constantly pointing out this or that kind of experiment or study that's funded here or in another country, it convinces people. So we've got to find ways to message all of the important things that government does. It's a constant losing battle, though, as I'm sure you probably understand. But here's a terrible messenger. It's the Secretary of Commerce. His name is Howard Lutnick, Trump's choice to run our economy. And he is a huge sycophant. And while Trump said over the weekend, I don't know, there could be a recession, Lutnick said, I don't think there's going to be a recession. And then he talked about manufacturing jobs. Meanwhile, and bringing back factories to America, they're literally canceling factories in America right now. Factories that got money from the Biden administration, from Democrats, from Congress are being canceled. The funding's being canceled. They're being shuttered while they're being built. Actual factories are being prevented from being built. Here's the Commerce Secretary on Meet the Press saying the opposite.
Lumber. The CEOs of Target and Best Buy this week warned that they will have to increase prices as a result of tariffs. Do you acknowledge that prices will go up for consumers because of these tariffs?
I think it's important for people to realize that we run $2 trillion deficits, and Donald Trump is going to try to balance the budget of the United States of America. And when you balance the budget of the United States of America, you drive interest rates down 150 basis points, 1.5%. You're going to have mortgages come smashing down. The cost of your home will come smashing down. We're going to drill, baby, drill, and drive down the price of energy. That's coming down. So these two massive moves are going to happen. And you know who's going to pay for that? Tariffs and outside countries who just leech off of us, lean on us, earn money off of us. They've got to start to pay. President Trump wants the American people to start to understand the External Revenue Service should start to pay. Yes, some products that are made foreign might be more expensive, but American products will get cheaper, and that's the point. Buy American, made by great Americans. We're going to bring manufacturing back. That's where we're going. That's where this president is going. Bring it back. Yeah. So will there be distortions? Of course. Foreign goods may get a little more expensive, but American goods are going to get cheaper, and you're going to be helping Americans by buying American.
All right. Idiot number 3 is Kevin Hassett, one of Trump's chief economic advisors. This guy's always wrong. He is a caricature of an analyst. He said there would be no COVID deaths. He said the Dow was going to reach 30,000 like 20 years before it did. The guy's got an awful track record of always being wrong, and yet he still gets invited to say things and gets important jobs in the government. Here he is saying stupid things. Idiot number 3, Kevin Hassett, on ABC's This Week with John Carroll.
Of course, fairness issues. Let's just be fair. Whatever you do to us, we'll do to you. That's what he's asking for in April, and it's not a radical idea at all.
But let me ask, because I am confused now about what you're saying about this being a drug war, not a trade war. So let's just take Canada. Mm-hmm. I mean, you said Canada's shipping fentanyl into the United States. I mean, I don't think that's happening. Sure. I mean, 1% of fentanyl is being smuggled across the border. 1%. I mean, Canada's not a major source at all of fentanyl in the United States, are they?
Well, yes, they are a major source. And I can tell you that in the Situation Room, I've seen photographs of fentanyl labs in Canada that the law enforcement folks were leaving alone. Canada's got a big drug problem, even in their own cities. Go walk around, Toronto and see what it's like. And you'll see that it is a big problem. And frankly, we have intelligence that Mexican cartels operate in Canada as well. And so if you want to get the cartels out of the U.S., you got to get them out of Canada and Mexico.
Oh, go walk around in Toronto and let us know about their drug problem. Okay. Any Toronto listeners, let me know if that's the case. Man, that guy is terrible. And so are the lies that they're making about Canada and fentanyl trade and drug trafficking. Look into it, by all means. Let me know what you find. All right, let's go to Senator Adam Schiff. He had something to say about Kevin Hassett, was on the show just before him.
At the kitchen table, hoping that he would offer something to help them afford a new home or pay the rent or afford health care or child care. There was nothing in it for the American people, and that's where we need to keep our focus. I was just listening to your guest precede me, trying to explain that these tariffs, these on-again, off-again tariffs, are not about trade. It's a drug war, but next month it's a trade war, but now it's a drug war. It was incomprehensible, and he was also trying to say that job numbers that came in less than expected are somehow good news. They're destroying the economy, and they're making it harder and harder for Americans to afford things. That's where we need to keep the focus. That's why we lost the last election, because we weren't laser focused on the high cost of living. And what they're doing now is just making it so much worse in the administration, and that's really what we need to emphasize.
All right. Well, there you have it. Those are the clips I've got for you, except for some comedy. That's right. Saturday Night Live was live this weekend with Lady Gaga was the host and musical guest. But here are the jokes, about 4 minutes of, I thought, great jokes from Michael Che and Colin Jost on Weekend Update.
Well, tomorrow marks the start of daylight savings time, when we set our clocks ahead, ideally 4 years. After President Trump spent last week defending our historical best friend, Russia, Trump turned this week to attacking our sworn enemy, Canada. That's right. Those syrup-guzzling, poutine-munching, moose-humping hockey sluts have taken advantage of us far too long. Even right here at SNL, American sketch comedy jobs are being stolen by filthy Canadians.
President Trump addressed a joint session of Congress and claimed that no president has changed government faster than him. Yeah, and nobody changed airport security faster than bin Laden. President Trump also said that he signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. But if men aren't allowed to play women's sports, explain soccer.
lot of soccer fans at the Gaga show. Okay. Education Secretary and WWE co-founder Linda McMahon, who's the one on the right, said that closing the Department of Education would not hurt students, and actually test scores might go up, maybe even as high as 69.
After imposing tariffs on Mexico and Canada on Tuesday, President Trump reversed them on Thursday. It's a cunning political tactic experts call bipolar disorder. President Trump said the tariff on goods from Canada is to stop the flow of fentanyl, even though last year only 40 pounds of the drug was seized at the northern border. 40 pounds? What's that, like 2 buttfuls? It's like 2 buttfuls. I thought it was smart.
Experts say that President Trump's tariffs will raise the cost of a new car by as much as $12,000. Or you can get a free Tesla since people are throwing them away. Speaking of which, Tesla CEO and white Kanye, Elon Musk, wore a suit instead of a jacket and T-shirt to this week's cabinet meeting after President Trump made fun of his clothing. It's a refreshing reminder that bullying still works.
On Thursday, Elon Musk's SpaceX Starship exploded just minutes into its mission, which is how he ended up with all those kids. That the leaders of Great Britain and France have been coaching Volodymyr Zelensky on how to deal with President Trump. Kind of like how you need extra training to be a special ed teacher.
And this is exciting. Donald Trump Jr. is reportedly considering a run for president in 2028. If you don't think he could win, you clearly aren't familiar with how things work here in hell.
I love it. Oh, so good. All right. Now, a message from the great Pete Coe, longtime listener, supporter, voiceover actor, and he joined us for last year's PODJAM, and I'm looking forward to see him at this year's PODJAM. Here he is.
Hey there, stand-up listeners. Whether you're a first-time listener or a full-fledged Patreon member of this venerable podcast production, you won't want to miss our upcoming live event in Las Vegas, March 27th through the 30th. It's the second annual Stand Up Pod Jam, a live podcast event created by Pete Dominick and you, his amazing listener community. You'll learn a lot at this year's event because it's got many of our regular guests you've come to know and love, including health policy expert and author Aaron Carroll, author Tim Wise, and the legal eagle himself, constitutional law expert Eric Segall. You'll also laugh a lot at PODJAM because Maura, Quint, Christian Finnegan, Ophira, Eisenberg, and J.L. Cauvin will be there too. And of course, Pete himself might even tell a few jokes. It's the second annual Stand Up PODJAM, March 27th through the 30th in Las Vegas. Tickets are available at humanitex.com or click on the link in the show notes now.
All right, there you have it. Pete Coe, love him, and I hope to see you at PODJAM and, of course, tonight at our hangout. And now it is time to get to my guest, who is one of my favorite columnists, writers, thinkers. She is Chicago's own Heidi Stevens. Heidi's the Director of External Affairs at the TMW Center for Early Learning and Public Health. She worked for 23 years as a writer and editor at the Chicago Tribune, writing a daily column called Balancing Act for a decade. And she's still writing that column, which appears in the Chicago Tribune and everywhere else. She's got a very popular Facebook group, which if you're on Facebook, I highly recommend you join the Balancing Act because it's awesome. You can find Heidi on Instagram, where every day she shares video pictures of her runs almost every day. I love following her on Instagram as well as everywhere else on social media. Heidi reached out to me over the weekend because we talk a lot, text a lot, and had a question about kind of the messaging and a lot of the things that she's seen lots of folks post about being ashamed of America and what's happening. We had a thoughtful conversation, and here is where we start with Heidi Stevens. All right. My first question before we get to the topic at hand, and I know that you're not a doctor, you're a journalist and a writer, but I'm 49. I just went for a run, and I thought since I'm talking to you, I should ask you, I have minor knee pain. I haven't run in months because I got hurt and I've been out of it. And should I, at 49, run through it and ice it, stop and ice it, or let it snap?
I'm going to go with D, none of the above. Oh. What I've learned from a gazillion appointments with everybody from like acupuncture to you name it, is knee pain is never about your knees, right? It's your hamstrings, it's your hips, it's your ankles. There's something else going on and you're like feeling it in your knees. So I don't know. Do you roll out your IT band? Do you do all those crazy?
Part of the issue is I haven't done anything in months since I got hurt skiing.
So part of it is your knees are just like, woo. And it's probably also all the stuff around your knees going, oh, we haven't done that in a while. So it's probably honestly like tightness in your quads, in your hamstrings. I would try get one of those roller band things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Do that with your IT band, with your quads. Just try to loosen up everything around your knees. And I have a feeling that the next couple of times you run, you'll be fine. But I would not stop running because I don't think you have a problem with your knees. I think the stuff around your knees is probably just shocked that, we're running again.
Maybe it's just emotional issues.
Your knees might need some therapy and some gentle parenting. You've got it in you. You've got it in you. I know you do.
All right. Now to the topic at hand. You reached out to me privately and I was like, this is such an interesting conversation and question, something I've been struggling with as well for the primary reason that you suggested. And so I thought we'll tape it. We'll see if it's worth sharing. So you brought up this issue that basically you're hearing far too many liberal minded people on the left talking about how ashamed they are of their country, how ashamed they are of America, being American, different versions of that. And your comment, which I fully agree with, is it plays right into the right-wing narrative that they've been saying about folks who think the way we think for years. How did I do it summarizing it?
Yeah, so I certainly relate to that feeling of shame. America is doing shameful things right now. America has done shameful things since its founding. It was founded on shameful things in many ways. It was also founded on truly transcendent ideals that, if applied the way they're written, would create something like nothing else in the world and better than.
Yeah, a great idea in theory. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, grand experiment, all those things. So this is not like buck up where everything's fine. This is, I worry, and especially after his address the other night, a lot of the right is saying things along the lines, you're on all the same channels I am, things along the lines of, if liberals didn't hate America so much, if the Democrats didn't hate America so much, there's a lot of, you guys hate America, we love America. Yeah. This is what it looks like for someone who loves America to run America. And it's, oh my gosh, no. What is happening, in fact, is that he's desecrating and dismantling so much of what we love about America, right? The United States is the single largest aid donor in the world, right? America leads in cancer research around the world. Like we are on the right side of a lot. So Social Security takes care of people when they need a safety net, either through age or disability or loss. The things that make us such a valuable contributor to the world, the things that help us take care of our people, our veterans benefits, those are the things that he's attacking. I'm not ashamed of America. I'm appalled at a leader who would come in and ruin what's great about America, ruin what's best about us, and push us farther and farther away from the ideal, eventual version of America, right? That grand experiment version of America. So it's not so much that I don't understand people saying I'm ashamed of America or I don't relate to that. I worry that it plays into this concept that the right loves America, the left hates America. The left loves America so much that it wants to see a idealized, more perfect union version of America that applies to all of its people, and that leaves room for new people to arrive in America and have access to that same America.
I love America, right?
so much. That to me, that is also love. It's not a love it or leave it style love, but I should let you get a word in edgewise, but that's where I have some discomfort around although I understand what's underneath of it, I have some discomfort around this notion that we are ashamed right now. We are ashamed of America. I'm appalled by the person running America right now. I'm appalled that so many people voted for him, although he certainly doesn't have a mandate. I'm appalled by people who see what he's done so far and are still fine with it, and in fact are cheering it on. I'm appalled by all of that, but I stop short of saying I'm ashamed of America, because I just worry that the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world then go, see, they hate us anyway. They all wanted to pack up and move to Canada. Go ahead. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think it's going to get the left or left-leaning progressive candidates back in power. I think it just plays into this notion that we're whiny babies who hate this place anyway. When you saw, maybe you didn't, we follow each other closely on social media, me rooting for Canada in the hockey game. In hockey, Four Nations. Did you feel disappointed? I blocked you. You blocked for a day, though. Maybe you somehow let me. I must have done something to redeem it, because I feel like I'm unblocked. I don't know. No, I took that as good fun. And honestly, I don't know. I don't want to put words or thoughts into your head or your mouth, but that felt like kind of good-natured fun. Like, wow, we're booing each other's anthems. Okay, I'm on the side of Canada then. Like, I like their leader better than mine. I'll go with Canada. Like, I don't know. I feel I feel like I have a complicated view, my relationship with this country, and I could talk about it and detail and address many of the kind of things that you just said. And I think it depends on your perspective and how you were raised and by who and your education and all kinds of different things. Of course, I was radicalized by my leftist older brother, who was radicalized by Noam Chomsky, is the way I like to say it, like early when I was a late teen. But to further this conversation, what you're seeing and what people are posting, what they're saying, even more maybe honestly or passionately, privately, is some version of shame, disappointment, sadness. You feel this way. You've articulated it here and elsewhere. One thing I said on social media that seems to have resonated is putting it this way. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't the damage and pain being caused, but watching so many people support it. A lot of my shame and anger and frustration comes with watching my fellow Americans, my neighbors, my community, my family, and my friends be so blinded and then have them think the exact same way of me, that I'm the one in the cult. I am the libtard who supported an Alzheimer patient and is every other name in the book. What is a way of us, whether it be publicly or privately, sharing those feelings without falling into their own trap of saying, see, I told you so. People, the other side, which we all aren't, if thoughtful, nuanced feelings, hates America. What's a better way of expressing it? It's such a good question. And I certainly would never, ever want people to shut up about their feelings, shut up about their conflicted or anger toward. Not at all, but you're concerned with it playing into a paradigm that hurts those of us who feel this way and marginalizes folks even more than they are. I think about leaders who I find effective and who win at the ballot box, so I think they are effective. And I think of an Obama, right? Or like a Cory Booker or like a Tammy Duckworth. These are people who are like pride, patriotism like bleeds out of them, right? It's like oozing from their pores. Like no one would say Tammy Duckworth. I'm not going to say no one would say. People on the other side will say anything. It is really hard to credibly say Tammy Duckworth hates America, right? She lost both of her legs in a Black Hawk helicopter accident and fighting in a war on behalf of her country. So that one, if you say it, is tough to make stick, in my opinion. So I think there is a way, and again, I'm certainly not telling people how to speak or feel, but like,
no, but give me the reason I really want to talk to you.
I think there's a way to talk about it where it's similar to how I talk about Chicago. People accuse me all the time of being like this Chicago chauvinist or like blind spots about Chicago. Are you kidding me? Like I've lived here almost 30 years. I've raised kids here. I've sent kids to public schools here. I know all the flaws. I love it in spite of its flaws. I want to stay and fight for it because of my love for it. I don't want to conflate imperfections with unlovable or I'm ashamed. I think about it a little bit like you would approach, I don't know, like if your daughter was having trouble at school with a teacher and you went into the principal with your daughter and said she's having trouble with this English teacher, he won't answer her questions or he won't seats her where she can't see the board, whatever the thing is. Because you love your daughter, because you want her to have the best experience possible, because you want her to have the experience that her classmates are getting and she's clearly not. The principal shouldn't, if they're a good principal, say, love it or leave it. Well, you clearly hate my school. Well, you clearly hate your daughter. You will clearly, what? No, I'm here because I love my daughter. I'm here because we're invested in your school. I'm here because her education and her quality of life matters to me more than anything. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. You don't want to let
criticizing doesn't have to be hating. Criticizing doesn't have to be washing your hands of. Criticizing doesn't have to be throwing your hands up in defeat. Criticizing is an act of love and investment and optimism and hope. And I know I sound like now I'm on a campaign stump speech and I'm not, but I'm serious. I think it means, I love this place so much. I don't want to move. Are you kidding? I love it here. I don't want a different school. I don't want a different neighborhood. I don't want a different country. I don't want a different family. I want this one. I want to make this one as amazing as it could be. So I just think if there's like a way to, even if it just infuses our thought process as we're talking about things and posting about things, I think it can be useful. I don't know. I also think about the fact that America, more than a lot of other countries, is built around making dissent okay. You can burn the American flag. That's legal. That is not legal in a lot of countries. You can't burn the flag in France. You know what I mean? You can't burn the flag in Israel. You can burn our flag. The First Amendment, Trump's trying to undo it via Truth Social, but as it stands, and hopefully as it continues to stand, like our free press and the fact that you can write scathing opinions, not in the Washington Post anymore, but in all sorts of other outlets, Heather Cox Richardson can send out a Substack and point out the path to having a Russian plant essentially in the White House. Like, you can do all of that here. That is baked into the United States. And I think in a way, having that internal debate or that tension and conflict with your neighbors who think your posts make you a libtard and you think their posts make them Nazis. How American is that? You know what I mean? People like men and women went and fought in a war to defend your freedom to burn the flag that they fought under. Like, that is America, right?
That is the America that a lot of people want to believe that we live in or that we have believed in. I'll say that. I feel like you're making me think, and this is making me happy that we did this, because I didn't come in with this thought when you first texted me. I was a little stubborn. But I feel like messaging is always important. It's really hard for us to do on the left, or progressives or Democrats or liberals or whatever you want to call us. All of us on Earth One, because we prefer nuance and details and thoughtfulness, and that doesn't really that doesn't get ratings. It doesn't sell. They just want something quick and something binary to make me feel right or righteous. But in this case, it might be worth thinking about messaging the America that we love and that we fought for and that we've advocated for, and those wins, and trying to keep them. Because one of the things that you texted me, we were going back and forth, the good and the bad of America, and you mentioned women's reproductive rights and gay marriage. And it might be worth mentioning right now, what I love about America is that
We live in a country where it's legal to marry the person that you love. And that is something that we fought for and won in our lifetime. And I don't want to lose that. And I don't want to lose the other things that we have gotten, like Obamacare, which is far from perfect. And furthermore, what you're talking about really overall is whether it's Chicago, your family, your school, your child, or yourself, most importantly, is that you don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You want to keep trying to make things better. And maybe you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It seems like in my personal life and in America, sometimes we might have taken 3 steps back, and people feel that way all the time. But the idea is that you keep trying to make things better and save the things that you've already won. And that might be a way to message. Here are the things I love about my country, my community. Here are the things I want to save, because frankly, Heidi, you and I both know that one bad part of America is that we've had it so good for so long. So many of us, even those who have struggled with poverty and racism and other things, we've had a lot more democracy than they have in other countries. And now we're losing it, and we didn't even know we had it. So we need to remind each other. This is my summation of what you've made me think here. We need to remind each other what we love about our countries and our communities and our schools and ourselves, rather than just complain about what we're ashamed of.
I think that's right. And again, I want to be really careful not to sound like I'm policing people's feelings or posts or anything. I just think if you're thinking strategically about what's going to be effective and what's going to not just turn into handing fodder and fuel to the other side, I think that shifting a little bit away from the I hate it here, I've never been so ashamed in my life, like all of that sort of, I just feel like it hands them a playbook, or it hands them points, right? If you're scoring this thing, and I don't want to feel like we're scoring this thing, but you're scoring this thing in elections, right?
Yeah. I mean, messaging matters. I believe it more than anything. I'm not a strategist.
I'm a journalist. I'm not even a full-time working journalist anymore. I'm whatever I am, a human observer. I don't know. So
You're an amazing writer, and you publish a regular column that affects people's lives in a very, your work is very important, whatever you want to call it.
Thank you. No, thank you. I still have a column, but I'm saying I'm not a political strategist, right? I'm not.
No, but you're a very thoughtful person, and you talk to a lot of people. So.
And if I were talking to a candidate for any office, school board, all the way up, it would be like, give people something to have a aspirational, ambitious vision. Don't just have doom and gloom and you should be ashamed of yourself. We all should be ashamed of ourselves. Here's everything wrong. The irony, of course, is that on the right, they often run doom and gloom and fear mongering, and it works. But I think we can let them have that. I think that it is historically, been more effective to have an Obama style approach. And I think, to be honest, it's more accurate. The United States does a lot of good in the world, and historically has done a lot of good in the world, and a lot of bad, right?
I can list it all in our lifetime.
It's both ends. And what I think is appalling so many of us right now is that so much of what's good is being chipped away at. The foreign aid, the leadership on cancer, leadership on climate, the
research,
help to Ukraine, right? To research. Our universities are the envy of the world. And now, is that still going to be the case? These are things that, as you said, we didn't even completely understand we had until we're at risk of losing them. But we do have present tense, a lot of them still. And I think it's not just smart, but it's also accurate to say, I love these things about this place. I want to fight for them.
Some people might
not an automatic, like, I hate it here. I hate this place. I've never been so ashamed. I don't know how beneficial that approach is.
It might get you a lot of likes, and it might resonate with other people and make you feel seen, but it also might be something that is helpful to do privately more than publicly, to give people something positive to think about, to fight for, to savor. And Yet another viewpoint someone might have hearing this conversation is no matter what we say here on Earth One, they'll say we didn't say it. They'll say we said something else. They'll twist it. So it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how we message. Just let me be negative and say whatever I want, because they're not going to acknowledge that I said it anyway. They live in a completely different reality where they can make up scenarios and narratives. They could literally say Heidi Stevens said blank, and the lie gets around the world across Instagram and Facebook and everywhere you might live, all the way to your cell phone. To the point, it circles back into your actual email box when they threaten you and send you texts, and you're like, I didn't even say that. That's happened to me several times. I'm sure it's happened to you. And so somebody might say, no matter what I say, they're going to manufacture something different, something false. I don't know.
100%. It's 100% true. And we can only control what we can control, right? I can't control what someone else does with my words, but I can control my words. And so I do get to decide what level of integrity I'm going to live by and what I'm going to put out into the world. Now, once it's out in the world, I can't babysit it. I can't babysit my columns or my tweets or my posts. Like, I put it out there. And this is not to dismiss the dangers of what you're saying. It's awful. That's now possible and very much happening, and I've had it happen. But also, like, I can't do anything about that right now. I don't work in I don't work in tech. I can't do anything about that. I can do something about what I say and write and what I contribute to the world. I can do something about that, right? And then what happens after that, I can't control.
Right. I love that. That's exactly the best way to put it. It's true. Okay. I'm excited to see if we share this, what people think about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And you know what? This is back to, I think, the central point of everything we're saying. Basically, like, if people listen to this take and tear it apart, okay, I might be all wrong. This is just a hunch I'm having, watching the right just have a feeding frenzy about how much Democrats hate America right now, or how much liberals hate America, not just right now, just in general, and feeling some of this like hand-wringing playing into that. And it's not that the hand-wringing is not justified. It's 100% justified. Is it strategically useful? That part, I don't think so. But again, come at me if I'm all wrong on this. I'm so fine with that. I want it. I would love to hear the dialogue around this. I wish we were like in an auditorium right now and people could stand up and yell their thoughts.
They are yelling them at their whatever they're playing this on. I almost said iPod. The hell's wrong with me? iPod? Who has an iPod that's listening to the show? Do you have a Walkman?
Right.
Stand Up Pete Dumlings is available on tape cassette.
I'm trying to dial up AOL.
All right, Heidi, I'll press stop, and I really appreciate you bringing up this issue. I'm glad we taped it, and we can then decide if we're going to share it.
I like it. All right, good talking to you.
All right, Heidi Stevens. So happy that she was able to join me. Always love hearing from her. And you should join her Facebook group, follow her on social media, read Balancing Act. She's very, very good. A lot of fans. And I want to hear back from you. What do you think about that conversation? Where you agree? Where you disagree? Let me know. Email me. And by the way, after that conversation, she sent me this messaging about being maybe embarrassed for America. That seems like a carefully chosen phrase versus embarrassed by America. What do you think of that? Okay, let us know. And I will talk to you tomorrow. I hope to see you at tonight's hangout, which should be from Syracuse if I make it to my parents, because I'm going to head up there for a few days. Mary Dominic's birthday on Wednesday. Wish my mom happy birthday if you're still listening, you bumblebees. Here at the end, don't worry, I'll be promoted and even more in the next couple of days. Okay, bye-bye. Love you. Be well. And go buy John Carroll's new album if you haven't already.